Yo, 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 and welcome to the show.
Mm.
That's my new one. This is the wrap up your Raptors Republic post game show. I'm Oren, joined by Kyle and Adon, and we are here to recap the Toronto Raptors 93-98 win over the Philadelphia 76ers, and just here to recap another great win. Great team playing great. I'm feeling good. You guys feeling good? How you guys feeling out of 10?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling awesome.
Real good.
9s out of 10. I'm feeling like 9 energy. That's good. Yeah, so the Raptors come away with a 93-98 win after looking a couple shaky things happening at the end of the game, but not to worry because the missed free throws don't end up mattering because James Harden elbows Chris Boucher in the face. So it doesn't really matter. Pascal carries them to the win pretty much with 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. And they really limited Embiid and Harden in a way that, was impressive. So I guess like right off the bat, what do you guys take away from this win in terms of, this is a very potential playoff matchup. So I guess what from this win was real and what maybe wasn't real? I'll go to you, Kyle.
I think the defense is real. They held the Sixers to 88 points. And I think the Sixers defense is like on the Raptors is real. 93-88. That's like, you don't see many of those games in the NBA. And these guys are just like the way the Raptors play Embiid, and he's spoken about it in interviews. Like I think he spoke about it in an interview with Zach Lowe. It's like they double him more aggressively than any other team doubles him. They even like before the catch, even on like the setup, they're pre-rotating so aggressively. And just in general, like I think the Raptors are kind of a good matchup for this team. I think point to attack, he had a couple steals. Yeah, he got blown by a couple times, whatever it happens. Chris Boucher had an amazing night, and I think he can thrive in these types of games. I know he wasn't the best from the field, but just came up huge late. So
Aiden?
Yeah, I'd say what stands out to me is, definitely the defense, but I think the resilience, like to me, over the stretch, even with the loss against the Lakers, it's kind of like we're not falling into those same doldrums that we were earlier on in the season, where it's just like disgusting basketball for extended periods of time, and particularly without Freddie, we're still able to do that, and without Gary, and so like. We did have 12 points in the third quarter, but it's this kind of like feeling you have in your stomach where you're just like, okay, we're going to figure this out. Like there's an ability here to come back and to like bring this game back to where we can take control. And I didn't feel like we had that earlier in the year as much. And a huge part of that is Scotty's ability to create, and a huge part of that is Precious just being a sudden offensive weapon that is showing up consistently. So I think that's something we can take into the playoffs, is that like we're going to compete with whoever we're playing, and when we get slugged in the face, we're going to be able to bounce back and at least like throw another couple of jabs your way.
Yeah, I feel like the word that I was thinking of was like composure, and you guys kind of hit on that. Like defensively, you can like single anyone out and say like this guy had a good game, this guy had a bad game, but ultimately like either the team plays well on a string or they don't. Like either they win because they're playing well together and executing on the game plan, or they don't. I thought this game from like the start, well, actually not from the start, but from like late in the first quarter after they kind of started coming back, biting into that lead, their defense was just so like well executed and composed where, the doubles were coming to Embiid from the right spots, not silly, late doubles where they were easy to pick apart. And guys, when James Harden drove, guys were stepping up and contesting and forcing him into that floater range rather than allowing to get to the rim. Like, I just thought they played it incredibly well together. And I think that's like one of these things that just comes out of playing more. Like this group is finally getting some extended run together. Like the same guys play night after night now for the most part. And it feels to me like that chemistry is really coming along defensively, at least. And 13 points in a quarter, that has to happen for this team. It's meant to be at this point.
Yeah, and same with the free throws. Like that's just all part of what this team brings, right? Like we're gonna have troubles shooting free throws towards the end of the game. But I think it's interesting. Like we match up quite well with Philly, not only, which is surprising because you'd think we wouldn't, but being able to put Boucher on Harden, or like the fact that really there's no wings that are that dangerous with this team. And then on the offensive end that Scotty and Pascal can cook basically anybody that they throw at them. I think I was more surprised at how well we actually match up with them.
I don't know why Philly insists on playing DeAndre Jordan. Like, why don't they just go small in those James Harden moments?
Paul Millsap's asking the same question.
Yeah, Doc's rotations kind of baffle me at times, and this dates back to like even in Los Angeles. Like he does some weird shit. Like I don't know why they're insisting on playing a center behind Embiid when you can just go Tobias Harris at center. That would have given the Raptors a lot of trouble tonight, like the spacing and the general making on the floor with Tobias Harris. And you can afford, if there's ever a team in the NBA you can afford to go without a center again, it's Raptors team that doesn't play a center. So
yeah.
Well, I would push back on that because the rebounding aspect of it, right? Like the Raptors killed them on the boards tonight. And so if you go Tobias at center, you're just completely like giving up on that, I think. But actually that to me was such a big part of why the Raptors were so good in this game. Like people assume that the Sixers are this incredible rebounding team kind of because they have been in previous years, especially Ben Simmons was a huge part of that. They're like 20th in the league right now, defensive rebounding. And that is including like the trade. So I think before that, they were even worse. I'm not entirely sure actually, but yeah, 20th in the league right now. So when you guys say that they're a good matchup, like I agree in some ways, and I think that's a huge one. Where the rebounding against Philly is real. Like you would think it wouldn't be because Joel obviously is one of the best rebounders in the world, but you can't surround Joel with a bunch of like small wings and expect them to out rebound 4, 6, 10 guys, And that was kind of like what happened today. It was like those guys just could not keep up with Chris Boucher and Khem Birch and Precious Achiuwa and Scotty all together on the boards.
Yeah, and that's like I think that's one of the interesting points of contention going into the playoffs is like how real is the offensive rebounding advantage and how sustainable it is, because it's becoming a huge part of our game. And it's like, is this a question of other teams are just not locked in defensively with their scheme, or they're just not working as hard as us? And so like, I don't think it's fool's gold. I think this is a big part, like, and I talked about this before, like when you have wings matched up on 6'9" guys, you're just going to melt when they crash the boards. But at the same time, you don't ever really want that to be a major part of your offensive scheme, and it kind of is.
Yeah. I live in fear of the playoffs. Like when another team takes a timeout in the first like 3 minutes and just basically like the coach berates them about getting on the glass, and the Raptors have no offensive rebounding advantage for the rest of the series type thing. So we'll see how that turns out. Could we run the sequence at the end with Boucher? The getting absolutely like a flying elbow to the head.
Do you guys
I'm shocked they let him shoot the free throws, because like I get that there isn't a concussion protocol in the NBA like there is in the NFL or the NHL, but like there's no way he just took an elbow to the cranium. Like there's no way he's not concussed there.
He
right?
Bounced off him.
I mean, no, his neck snaps back in like such a brutal way.
Do you think
I think they got to take that guy out of the game.
Do you both think it was an offensive foul?
Yeah, for sure. You don't.
I don't know. I actually think that I think the offensive player is kind of entitled to go up strong. I don't think that was like, to me, because he has two hands on the ball, it's probably not. If he had his offhand elbowing him, basically pushing off and going up with the other hand, it is. But two hands on the ball, I kind of don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, but either way, it wasn't a defensive foul.
No, I think that's what I was saying when it happened. I was like, this is at best a no call, or at worst a no call. And I think the previous play where Boucher was also vertical should have been a no call too.
Yeah, the reffing was it was a tough game to watch. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah,
they get
because I thought the Raptors did a great job of being vertical at the rim in general, and the refs were kind of just picking and choosing their spots when they were like, if a guy hit the floor, regardless of if the defender went up straight or not, the refs were calling a foul on the Raptors. It felt like so. That was late. Anyways, I don't want to get into refereeing. I want to go back and dive a little deeper into like this Sixers Raptors matchup because I think we hit on some like interesting stuff, but we could dive even deeper. So, I mean, quickly on the rebounding, I'm kind of like in between you guys. I think it will matter in the playoffs. Like, I don't think a coach can just I don't think effort is everything basically, but I also think it's something. And against like the 76ers, also not just effort, but you can play matchups to really like avoid the rebounding problem. So I think like the Raptors will have that advantage depending on the matchup, but they won't have it to the extent that they do in the regular season probably. Other than that, though, I want to talk about like why this matchup works for the Raptors, maybe because I guess like my question is, are the Sixers frauds or are the Raptors actually a good matchup for them? You know what I mean? Like if we went through a bunch of Eastern Conference teams, would we say they match up well against the Sixers? They match up well. Or are the Raptors just like actually a good matchup? Do you guys think like the Sixers are really built for like a title run? Or do you think that the Raptors are just uniquely well built to play them? Adon, I'll go to you.
Well, there's kind of two different questions. I don't think they're ready to make a run because I don't think they're deep enough. Like, I think their wing play is a big problem. Tybalt didn't really, he had some good defensive moments, but he's just such a liability offensively. Harris is kind of looks gun shy. Danny Green's like probably washed. I don't think they have the depth. And I think I feel like isolation guys like Harden is kind of plays into what we want. Like it's a lot of standing around and it enables us to like really kind of lock in and build this like line of defense that we have. So I think it's a little bit of both.
The depth thing is kind of what I was going to mention as well. They gave up a lot of depth in that trade for Harden. Like they could have used Drummond tonight. They could use Seth Curry every single night. They miss him big time. I'm not sure how much Sixers you guys watched prior to the Harden trade, but Seth Curry was a big part of their offense.
He was their big scorer, basically. Yeah.
And I think in general the Raptors' biggest weakness is that their bench is super poor, and so this isn't necessarily something the Sixers can exploit. It's not like the Sixers are going to win every single Pascal-less minute or bench minute the Raptors have because they can't. They can't win any non-Embiid minutes at all right now. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to need some sort of like DeAndre Jordan was minus 10, 11 minutes tonight, and that was like all of the minutes that Embiid didn't play. Embiid was plus 7 in his 37 minutes. So I don't know, playoff mode, like could we see Embiid? I mean, could we see Embiid playing 42 minutes and then all of a sudden like they sort of creep back into this game? This is a 5-point difference. I don't know. Who knows? But at the end of the day, like the Sixers are very thin. And I don't know I think it's a little unfair to call Danny Green washed. I have major concerns about Maxey. Or not Maxey, sorry, Matisse Thybulle, because it's only more obvious in the playoffs. They dare guys to shoot. Teams will dare players to shoot. And Thybulle's going to be taking like 10 threes a game and being left absolutely wide open. So we'll see how that goes for them. He could be the newest villain in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, the reason I think the Sixers are frauds is because like they have the same issues that they had when like always, like you mentioned he can play 42 minutes, and it's not even about him getting gassed. It's about like he did that in the Raptors series, and they still lost those minutes that he's had by such an outrageous number. When who was it? Former Raptor who was their backup. Greg Monroe, yeah. And like DeAndre Jordan is like the same level as Greg Monroe at this point in his career. Like they could lose those minutes so bad that it doesn't even matter if Embiid sits. And to push back on like Zerar's comment, I mean, not push back, but like give my opinion. I don't actually. I think Embiid is like a top 3 player in the world in the playoffs. I think the Raptors are scared of going to the rim when Embiid is in the game. Like it screws up a lot of things for them. But I think like what you guys hit on is right. Like the guys around him just are not good enough to win a championship. Like James Harden would have to be an MVP level James Harden to do it.
Which he could.
Yeah, he could. Maxey was really good today. But outside of that, I totally think, Green is cooked. I think Harris is bad. I think Tybal is an overrated player. I think you go down the list and it's just, to me, the surrounding cast is not nearly good enough to win a championship, nor do they have like the identity to kind of make up for that. Because the Raptors surrounding like individual players are not great, but they have this identity that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing, so yeah, I think I agree. Yeah.
Well, another thing I kind of wanted to add, and someone mentioned, is like Precious had a good defensive game today, and I think that's something to keep an eye on too. Is that Embiid feasts in that 12-foot range where he can kind of like he can use his footwork or his leaners to kind of, or even dribble to get by guys. And I think Precious really flummoxed a lot of that, and like. So that's, I think, another reason why we match up well is we have a lot of even Birch played good minutes, and we can have a lot of mobile bigs just kind of like get into him. And I think that's one of the best ways to throw him off his game.
Yeah. And we'll get into a few Raptors soon because Precious did have a great game. But just a couple other things on the Sixers matchup, I guess. I mean, one, you guys already said this, but like Harden's isolation style of play, I thought he was terrible tonight. Like I thought, because Harden's kind of thing is that he waits for the defense to make a mistake and then he feasts on that. But the Raptors just were like executing well. And then by the time that no one made a mistake, there was like 8 seconds on the shot clock. And then Harden either took a step back 3 or drove into the lane and like missed a floater. I was just like, why are they not giving Embiid the ball in the post, especially on that clip we showed of Boucher taking the charge? You have, it's a 2-point game with 8 seconds left. Why is Embiid not getting a look in the post?
It's funny because I was with my friend and he asked me like, what are they going to do in this like last play? And I said, well, I think they're just gonna post up Embiid, and if they can't get it into him, then they're gonna ISO Harden. And like you said, like they didn't even look, and it is quite shocking. Like this is Embiid's team, and I thought even that alone would mean that Doc Rivers would go to him. It's just kind of like this is a vote of confidence into you being the team. Whereas now you fuck up the play, you gave it to Harden. I don't know that can sow the seeds of discontent, amongst two guys. It's like a little bit of frustration there.
We sure hope so.
The other thing is like. When Harden first got on the Sixers, like arrived, he was like passing and cutting and relocating to the corner and playing off ball, like with a really high level of effort, and did not see that from him tonight. It's like when you have a friend who is like a terrible boyfriend, and she's like, "Oh, I was about to break up with him, but he did all the dishes, and he like, he's been really good this week. He made me dinner, and he's doing coffee in the morning and stuff." But it's like, just wait. He's going to go back. This is who James Harden is. Like he's lazy. He wants everything for himself. I hate to say that because I do think he's a terrific player, but he doesn't, I just don't believe that he can be at the level that, they're going to need of him to win a championship. And even frankly, maybe to win more than one series.
I don't agree. I think he's too, like, I think he definitely has a bad record in the playoffs. There's no question. And like that, the game against the Nets the other day, he just like bowed out. So I do wonder about that, but I also think that he can just like get hot, and he will lock in the playoffs. And I think he will be like a nightmare to have to deal with. And I think that's the one thing that Philly has is those Embiid minutes on the bench. If Harden starts to hit his peak, like he can carry a bunch of schlubs along the way. I think they do need to figure out their rotations, but I would be scared of Harden regardless of his playoff past.
Yeah, I mean, to Andy's comment, it's our job to slander the Sixers after beating them without Fred and OG. That's just how these things work. It's a Raptor show. But I think it's funny because the Sixers remind me of the Toronto Maple Leafs, where it's like they have everything. You look at them on paper and you're like, yeah, this is a championship team, 100%. They stagger the two stars, like you make it work. They're incredibly scary offensively. Defensively, Embiid is still the rim protector regardless of who's around him. But something to me has just always been off there. And trading for Harden definitely was not going to solve like that cultural like thing. To me, it's like, I mean, it's basically like the Daryl Morey like phenomenon, which is like, do you value the intangibles or do you just value the numbers? And like, as someone who values the intangibles a lot, I can't get myself to believe in the Sixers. And as someone who values the numbers, you might. To transition to the Raptors here, because like the other thing I think that makes the matchup good for the Raptors, or really any team, I guess, playing the Sixers with like some size, is that they have a bunch of guys who you can pick on defensively, like like Maxey, like Harden, George.
To some degree, Tybal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like he's not strong enough to handle Scotty down low.
Right.
Yeah, okay. It depends like which matchup it is.
I'm just saying that he's not OG. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Like he doesn't have the strength. And for a Raptors team with like 5 guys who can post up, that is a problem. So I think that it also plays into the Raptors' hands. And just like, let's go back to Pascal, who had a really incredible game. And I think like he doesn't get enough attention. And this is what I wrote about yesterday is like, I think he's improved in a lot of ways that will matter in the playoffs. And like, he's not seen as like a top, 10, 15 guy. And there's a lot, I think the biggest reason for that is just that he's weird. Like he doesn't look like a star looks, but like the way he was able to pick apart their defense tonight makes me think like, I don't know. I think we might be underrating the Raptors offense a little bit in the playoffs because like this guy is just like better than a lot of players and he can, there's no one in the world who like, I mean, maybe like the Celtics, I'd be really curious to see that matchup just because like I want to see how he's fixed those holes in his game. But I don't think there's a lot of guys in the East who you can say like, yeah, Pascal can't score on that team or that player because they match up really well against him. You know what I mean? I mean, do you guys agree with that?
I guess. When the shot's falling, everything looks great. And I'm with you that like, yeah, he's kind of got like a weird, Pascal kind of has like a weird in between like a guard and a forward and a center and a post player. And it's like, none of it really looks top 15, but you put it all together, it's like he kind of is a top 15 player, especially throwing in defense. But he looked really bad against Boston in that series. He's looked pretty bad against Boston in general. And I think the Celtics are a really, really good team. So I'm hesitant I have a lot of trepidation about being optimistic against any Raptors against this Celtics team, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. The question is Pascal for real in the playoffs?
Yeah, basically. Has he fixed those areas of his game enough for you to be confident?
I think the reason why I would say yes is the diversity in which he's scoring. And like that mid-range is now like on lock. Mm-hmm. And he's finishing around the rim like tightly and confidently. And the three is falling a little bit. Like he's gotten to the point now where he can scan the floor and look at who's guarding him and deploy whatever array of moves he needs to get the bucket. And then on top of that, he's passing at like a higher or like a higher level. So I think teams are going to have to readjust around Pascal. I don't think it's going to be this thing that Pascal is going to shrink away, because he's just too dominant right now. There's so few players that can guard him one-on-one. And then I think, honestly, to me, the biggest concern is Scotty. I'm a little bit worried that this
Hold on, can I go on Pascal first?
Oh yeah.
Okay, just first to respond to this comment, it's true that he did it against Draymond in the finals, but that was such a different circumstance because he was the third option. Teams were not game planning around Pascal, whereas now the help was all towards Kawhi, whereas now he's at the top of every team's scouting report and he's still thriving and doing everything. So that's the difference. I will say this comment that this is the one thing that makes him not yet a superstar. He doesn't take over games. Clutch offense is for the Raptors the same offense as they run during the game, which is anybody can get it. And I think that is partly because Pascal doesn't have that finishing factor yet. But yeah, I think as I wrote about at Yahoo, I think he's improved in all the areas that matter in the playoffs, where I just don't think he's the same player as he was in that Boston series. But I'd be really curious to see Boston again for that exact reason, to be able to prove himself. But yeah, go ahead on Scotty.
I was just gonna say, I think also before we move on, this is a great point. Pascal has an answer for anyone.
That was my point.
Okay, great.
No, so it was Brian's fault.
Don't give Brian the goddamn credit. Give me the credit.
It was Brian's point. I thought Brian did a good job.
Don't worry, Brian. You're doing good.
And I was ready to defend you on that second comment. But
am I passive aggressive or am I just aggressive? I'm not really sure.
Go ahead on Scotty though.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say that it was just more in the context of who am I a little bit worried about in the playoffs. And I think it's Scotty, just because I think a lot of the way in which he scores is just overriding a defense that's not necessarily set or knows what to do with him. Because he gets a lot of these buckets where he's just kind of charging into the lane and finishing herky-jerky. And I'm just concerned that when things get gummy, as they typically do in the playoffs, that his lack of a shot is going to render him less of an option offensively. I think still he's going to be a threat on the boards, in the post. He's going to have those moments. But the last 6 games is the reason why we've been winning these games. It's Scotty. And I'm just a little bit worried that we're not going to get that push from him in the playoffs.
I think that's a good point. But I also think OG and Fred should solve some of those issues. And Scotty can go back to being that connector, fifth option, offensive rebounds, transition kind of guy. But I think that's a really good point.
But are we?
Do we want that?
Exactly. Are we the best team when it's Scotty? That's the thing, is I think our ceiling is when Scotty is the
but you just said it. You just said it. He's not ready to be the third guy.
Right.
But I think what Adon is saying, or at least what I'm saying, is that I kind of think it's better to give Scotty a lot of opportunities and just hope that he's rolling, because we look the best when Scotty is rolling in a big role. We talked about this, and it's I don't want to just unnecessarily get on OG or Fred, but it's they're not good in isolation, or in comparison to other guys in the same volume. Scotty, I would prefer. I think Pascal deserves more shots. Those guys should be floor spacers and second side guys on offense, or at least OG. And if OG comes back and demands a big role offensively and takes away from Precious or takes away from Scotty, I'm going to be upset. It's going to be not good for the team.
Well, I mean, I think it'll depend on where OG is at physically, just because if his rhythm is bad, then yeah. But if OG is back to being normal OG, then I think I disagree. I think he should be.
But what is normal OG?
The OG that we got at the beginning of the season. I mean, especially with Pascal out, but even like just
That
third,
20
fourth
point,
option OG.
that quiet 20-pointer or like 17-pointer.
Yeah, I think
But-
he's more reliable to do that than Scotty is on a night-to-night basis.
But would you prefer OG being that fifth option floor spacer guy who's going to get like those duck-ins and cuts and isolations only on mismatches because he's such a good spacer, or would you prefer Scotty to do that? Because I kind of think OG is more suited to that role.
OG's
Yeah.
not ready for ISO play either.
No, he's not. Him and Scotty are equally not ready for ISO play. The difference is that Scotty's a better playmaker. Scotty's a more willing playmaker. Not that OG is like a ball hog, but it's just sort of like Scotty's nature to be a playmaker. And frankly, it just makes more sense to have OG in the corner instead of on the ball because he's a good shooter. And Scotty should be in the dunker or on the ball.
I'm looking it up right now, but you know, OG, since you guys brought up a bunch of things that Scotty does well, OG is a really good post-up player.
Great post-up player.
Against mismatches.
Yeah,
Actually, I think his point per possession in the post isn't that good if you're looking that up.
Yeah, he's a good post-up player against mismatches, against guards, because typically other teams hide their bad defenders on him because they plant him in the corner.
Yeah,
So-
but he'll post up against bigs too. Like he's so strong that he can kind of get it against anyone. But I get the point. I guess like the answer is just gonna be like you try both, and depending on the matchup, see who works better. Like I think you guys are right to say that when Scotty's rolling, the team is at their best. But I also think the point Aiden made is real, that like you can't expect Scotty to roll in the playoffs. And so like, are you going to value like Scotty's development in the playoffs? No, you're going to find any way to win a playoff series once you're there, you know? So,
but I'm not, see, I think like, I'm not valuing Scotty's development. I think this is the way to win. It just happens to also benefit Scotty's development. And Matthew, like,
yeah,
I'm not saying a couple jumpers. I'm saying he's the guy in the corner on the like pick and roll. He's the guy like still getting a few touches, especially against mismatches. He's going to get his touches either way. I mean, think about, it's not like he was like last year or the middle of this year. It's not like he was like completely out of the offense at any point. It's not like he's like, or I'm not saying like move him to the bench. I'm just saying like he shouldn't be the number 1, 2, 3, or maybe even 4 option.
I think OG is gonna. If we're assuming OG is gonna be like conditioned and like has that feel back, I think OG is gonna be fine because whatever he does on defense is gonna complement that. I think the real concern right now is Freddie. Like his knee looks bogged, like it looks swampy.
You've been in there. You were in the surgery room.
I feel like I can feel the fluid in his knee from here, just watching him move, and like. I just think he's the perimeter threat that we desperately need. And maybe all it is him as like a shooting threat. But I think if Freddie's not at full capacity, the whole playoff talk is going to be like kind of moot.
totally agree. I mean,
well, while we're on concerns, should we talk Gary? Is there anything even worth saying other than the shots aren't going down?
Before we get to Gary, let's just finish. Like, I think OG has become underrated because I still think he's a better player than Scotty. I just like at this point in their
offensively
careers,
or just totally.
Just both. Like,
because no one's saying, I'm not saying OG's a better defender, but I'm a little bit shocked.
Offensively, I think OG's still a better player than Scotty.
That's like a mind-blowing statement to me.
Yeah, I mean, because I think what Aiden said is right. Like, Scotty feasts in these weird, chaotic moments. But if you're asking me who's the better player and therefore who can kind of figure out a set defense, it's OG. I think OG is a more reliable spot-up shooter. Of course, he's more reliable, attacking closeouts. He's, in the post, I'll draw them even. Maybe Scotty you could give it to, but I think they're pretty even. But, Scotty's a better playmaker. But, yeah, I think OG is a better offensive player still, just because, like, everything changes in the playoffs. I can't imagine Scotty gets to the playoffs and he's the same, like, efficiency guy. Whereas OG, I think I could totally see his efficiency going up in the playoffs like it has in the past. So I guess I'm a little offended by the put OG in a corner talk, just because like I think it's recency bias too. He's been out for so long that we forget like how good Remember how good he was when Pascal was out, and like that Knicks game where he had those 2 drives at the end of the game and like passed it to the corner for one, got to the rim for the other. Like he
had a lot of other games that it wasn't as pretty, especially when he's relying on his jumper.
Wow, so you guys are OG haters.
No, I fucking love OG. I don't think putting him in ISO is the best way to utilize him. But kind of the same way I don't think putting Scotty in ISO or Freddie in ISO or really Gary in ISO. Like I hate isolation on this team except for Pascal, and we do it so much. If anything, I want to put Scotty and OG in these actions where you can find them closer to the hoop in these mismatches. So, like I think that's when they're at their best.
Oren, can I ask you, was the OG game against the Knicks career high 36, 13 for 27 shooting on the night? Was that a better offensive performance than what Scotty did against even the Lakers the other night, or on like pick any number of these games on the run? He's had better playmaking than that night with OG. I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, it is hard to say, but I'll say that the Lakers do stink. Their defense stinks.
Oh, so. Sorry, I forgot the Knicks are world beaters.
Yeah,
you're right.
World beaters. Anyways, no, I think that's actually a hard decision. Like it's a good combo to have. But anyways, let's move on.
Yeah, we kind of went down a rabbit hole there.
For sure.
What else are we doing?
Should we?
I mean, yeah,
TCU,
I think you're right about. I think you're right about Fred. I don't know if anyone wants to go on a JTJ rant, but if he did not make that steal at the end of the game, I would have for sure.
I just have nothing to say. He's just missing.
I do. I think what I'm kind of annoyed with now is he had one moment where like Pascal like just didn't look at him when he was wide open, and he like threw a tantrum, and it's kind of like, dude, in the last 4 games, you're like 12 for 1,049 or something. Like you need to start doing something else on offense and quit saying that like I'm a scorer and like I'm going to score my way out of not scoring. It's like you got to start doing more stuff to get yourself in positions to score rather than just standing around and waiting to ISO. So I'm getting a little bit annoyed with that.
Phoenix, thank you for this. Anyway, with Gary, it also seems like, if his shot's not falling, he's got. He's got
in isolation or post ups?
You said.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. I'm sorry, I had to get the last one. I had to get the Phoenix. I thought made a great point, and I had to get the last one. No, Gary, when his shot's not falling, not a terrific playmaker. In fact, I would go as far to say like a pretty bad playmaker considering how much he touches the ball. Even though he had 3 assists tonight, it's not like he's creating for anyone else. It's not like he's bringing much rim pressure and collapsing a defense. And when his shot's not falling, he's kind of like lackadaisical in defensive end. I know he had a big steal late in the game, but he's a little daydreaming. So he seems just to be the type of guy he's like a momentum guy. Couple shots go in, and all of a sudden he's clapping his hands in the defensive end. He's like making the extra pass and all that kind of like stuff that he wouldn't otherwise be doing. Because, so it's just so hard, so frustrating. It really is. At this point, they need him to just be a consistent spot-up shooter for the playoffs. Everything else on the team has fallen into place. So
it was so foreseeable, though. It's just like the hot streak was just so insane, and it's like it just felt like there's no way this can continue. I didn't think he'd plummet like this. Like I really thought his floor was much higher, and I still think it is. But I just think he needs to start diversifying what he's doing.
Yeah, that's, I think, the concern is that from start of the season to the end, he hasn't markedly improved in those areas where we're talking about, whatever defense or playmaking or getting to the rim. Like we just played that clip of Harden swiping the ball away. Him in transition, I can't watch it. I have to close my eyes. Like he always tries to get under the rim, stop, draw the foul, which is like the move that I teach like college girls to do, because it like, but he shouldn't be doing that.
What do you mean college girls? You mean like elementary girls? Like
like the college team I coached. Like that's a good move there.
To draw the foul,
in that sitting. Yeah, like to pump fake, get someone on your back, then go up.
Yeah.
But like in his situation,
Cram
he
it.
should have more moves, and he should just be able to, like lay it up before the defense get there. Like, the transition stuff's really, really bad. But
It's like someone said earlier. He doesn't really have a lot of touch around the rim. That's really what it comes down to. And he's just
he
throwing
lacks
his
some
body.
athleticism.
He also doesn't finish with his left hand, so that's an issue.
He's not the most athletic either. Like, he's not like a high flyer or particularly fast. I mean, he's got decent lateral quickness, but you can kind of see all credit to him to be this good of a player, and teach himself that type of skill set, because he actually does create some good shots for himself. But
the good news is that like if he gets back on a hot streak in the playoffs, then like none of us will bring up any of the bad stuff, because his hot streaks are so high, like his highs are so high that everything else doesn't really matter. But like going back to the argument we just had, if Gary doesn't really fix everything by the playoffs, then he is the fifth option to me. Like, just put him in the corner.
But
like,
he's not.
Let's put everyone in the corner.
That's my point, though, is the way Gary plays is not fifth option, and I don't think it's going to be. And he gets pissy when he is.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on.
Tax.
Let's do the tax man of the night. And even though Siakam deserves it, shout out to Pascal for his game, we're gonna give it to Precious Achiuwa because we haven't talked about him yet, even though he gets it a lot on this show. But 9 for 15, that has to be a career high for Precious Achiuwa in terms of efficiency. 2 of 4 from 3, and just another kind of what we're starting to expect from Precious. He's a floor spacer now. He's a Embiid stopper, which actually was really impressive. Just his ability to keep Embiid out of his spot for long enough before the double comes, No
turnovers.
No turnovers, 9 rebounds. Incredible defensive composure, like we talked about at the beginning. Like, he really executed the game plan well. I thought he got called for a couple of really cheap fouls too that were really soft. Precious Achiuwa, do you guys have anything to say about him? Because I do.
He's starting to prove himself as a legitimate elite defender in the league. Like, he just did this to Harden. He can guard Embiid. He guarded LeBron. Like, we're starting to put him. He's the guy that you can almost start putting on anybody, and that's sneaky. I definitely didn't foresee him being so versatile, at least perimeter and post. So like, his defense tonight earned him the tax man, but I just think generally it's the last 6 weeks or so have been pretty insane with his growth on the defensive end.
Just to touch on the defense really quickly, I just want to it's incredible to me. There are only so many guys in the league who can go back-to-back possessions, like stopping Harden and then stopping Embiid. Like, there are, you need to count that on like 1 or 2 hands, the amount of guys who are able to do that.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Giannis.
But I mean, seriously, it's ridiculous. And more than the fact that he's improved as a shooter offensively, he's a better decision maker. And I don't think it's been mentioned as much because he still makes like 3 or 4 ridiculous decisions every single game. But it's like only 3 or 4 ridiculous decisions, is down from like legitimately 20 ridiculous decisions that we were seeing early in the year. I mean, he knows. He seems to have a better feel for his body. He's way better in isolation.
He's
a better finisher. He's not taking unnecessary shots, but he's still being aggressive and attacking. I mean, it's actually I'm all the way in it. Whatever. Oren can do his victory lap now.
Thank you. That's
I get
what I
that you've been waiting, you've been hovering over this star comment too. I can tell, but it's so long that it blocks Aiden's entire face.
Yeah, sorry, Aiden. Give me 5 minutes without Aiden's face in it. No, I had to come on this show and take the victory lap, not for you guys even, but for all the fans, for all the Raptors fans who all season were like, why are they giving Precious the ball? Why are they letting Precious dribble the ball? Why is Precious getting so many minutes? Yada, yada, yada. I came on here every game and I defended him. And I said, it's going to pay off in the long run. It's about the development. I always said his upside was high. And I just, in this industry, you get a lot of things wrong. So when you get something right, you have to take the victory lap. So that's what I'm doing right now. I said on this show that Precious is the type of player that if he figures it out to the extent that like reaches the maximum upside, like 90th percentile outcome, he is that type of game-changing center that every championship contender needs, where he is matchup proof. You can't figure out a certain matchup that he can't stay on the floor for. Look at the past few championship or NBA final centers. It's Bam, it's AD, it's Draymond, it's guys like that. You have to go all the way back to the Cavs before you find a guy who's not like that. So yeah, like his development is hugely important for the Raptors, because it's like they no longer maybe need a look for that starting center in the same way that they had to if this development keeps happening like the way it is. And we don't have to actually debate that right now, but I just Precious, he's really good.
Can I throw in honorable mention to my boy Armani Brooks?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about him actually.
Man,
yeah.
I gotta I want to talk to that kid. Man, shoot the ball. Like, you're out there to shoot. Take some shots, man.
So I wrote about him today. Actually, the article's out. It's pretty brief, but he's a smart player, and I think what he's been doing with the Raptors is being like, I don't want to disrupt what's going on here. I'm going to defer. I'm going to make the extra pass. I'm just going to work hard. And so I think that's pretty indicative of his personality type, but he's a flamethrower for sure. He can hit it. He's just obviously nervous or in a funk or whatever, but he
went 2 for 4.
Yeah. But before he was 1 for 9. So but last year he was in 20 games, he was 38% on 8 threes a game. He can do a little bit of everything. He really reminds me of Lou Williams a lot, body type and style of play. So I'm happy that he finally hit a couple tonight. And his defense is pretty good. If you watch him kind of flying around off ball, he makes a lot of good reads.
This comment, yes, absolutely. There's no one else better on the market. He's been with the team for 20 days. He knows the team well enough at this point, and he's a good shooter. That's what they need. He's a guard and he's a shooter. Yeah, I hope they sign him tomorrow.
You think we could get Goran Dragic though?
Yeah, he was actually. I saw a little highlight reel of him the other night. He was having a good night.
No, yeah,
I just had to save this comment from earlier. No. I had to save this comment from earlier. What is this? You can't just pick people with dreads and be like, "It's a player comp." So this is it. Come on, dude. This
Precious is already a better 3-point shooter.
Two other dudes with dreads. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, I thought Brooks was really good today. I think he's a really smart player, and then he obviously spaces the floor for them, which is why he's playing. But he's getting extended minutes because of the other things he's doing. I thought he had a clean block in transition there that got called for a foul. That was a really athletic, nice play.
Yeah.
And, that's why I kind of don't see the Lou Will. I think he's a little more athletic than Lou Williams. I think he's
bigger.
He's got a 6'9" wingspan. So
but you don't remember Lou Williams when he was younger was.
I was 10. I was 10 when Lou Will was athletic.
Also tore his ACL too. So he.
Okay. So I'll have to look up some highlights. Are they worth watching? The YouTube deep dive.
I don't remember.
Lou Williams?
But he was definitely a legit scorer.
He is. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's. Oh yeah, our Can-Am Tax Man of the Night was Precious Achiuwa. Visit canamtax.com to get all your taxing needs done, or call VJ at the top of the screen, because tax season is it's happening right now, and they'll get you the money back that you deserve. So go to canamtax.com ASAP and get it done, and they'll get you some real money back, guys. Okay, we have 50 minutes in. Do you guys have any concluding thoughts before we get out of here? Oh, thank you, Guru. Appreciate it. Thoughts on
$6.99. We're on sale.
Listen, Guru, I want to be pro Khem, and you know me. It's in my heart. It's in my soul. I come from very proud Quebec people.
Post
both
play.
My parents, but He's been terrible. He was awful tonight. I don't know what to say. He was terrible.
His defense was better tonight, though, or good.
Good. And good against Joel Embiid is, kind of more than I would have ever expected.
Yeah, I think like just having another big 6'10" body out there in a game like this, where your whole strategy is kind of send length at Embiid and force turnovers and get in transition and crash offensive boards. Khem played a role. However, he had 5 offensive rebounds. However, the way he's playing right now, maybe this is like the only like I don't see him playing in the playoffs that much.
I think to Phoenix's point though, and the thing with Freddie is like he looks healthier, and now it's just like getting back like comfortable and stuff. But I agree. I think he's slowly slipping out of the rotation unless we're playing, like a centerific player team that's not Joel Embiid, which is not very many.
And real quick, that's also a credit. That's not just because Khem has fallen off a little. It's also because Chris Boucher, who we didn't mention tonight, which is actually horrible of us, had an amazing game.
True.
He played 39 minutes. He almost played the entire second half. And he started the second half for Precious. And, he had 14 rebounds today himself, Chris Boucher. He's like really embraced their identity against like bad defensive rebounding teams like this. He makes a huge impact. And obviously Precious, who we talked about, and Thad Young, between the three of them, Khem's minutes aren't really there.
And I think to Boucher, honestly, Boucher might be the linchpin of all of this because he's been able to guard on the perimeter. And really I think and Precious has to some degree, but Boucher's really enabled this like big lineup because he's so mobile. So and his offensive rebounding is like absurd. I wish we could track the stats of number of times he's drawn a foul. He got another one tonight where he's on the offensive boards and he draws a foul because it's crazy.
I got to stick up for Precious here because I do think Precious's defense at the perimeter is still significantly better than Boucher's, but
yeah, he's good.
Boucher is improving in that regard compared to like where he was 2 seasons ago. Yeah, he's definitely better.
But aren't they putting Boucher more on guards than Precious?
Yeah, but they switch everything, so
yeah.
I don't know. It's
hard
to say. Yeah, TCU versus Arizona. We're gonna get out of here, but
let's go watch it.
Point. Like
that's our champion. Aiden and I's brackets both have Arizona winning.
Yeah, and also we got to talk about
ugly.
We got to talk about our Canadian too at Arizona.
Yeah, Benedict. I think Benedict Mathurin, I'm ridiculously high on. And
say it. Say the take. Give the take.
No. I think that there's a good chance he ends up being the best player out of this draft. Just because, I don't think anyone's going to be world beating unless Chet turns out to become.
Oh, now you're back on Chet. Don't worry.
No, I saw a little bit of Chet last night, and I was kind of in on it. But
no, it's too late. Your tweet is out into the Twitterverse.
I'm fine being out. I don't want to be in on Chet. But I think Mathurin could be like the best player of this class, and I think this class in general could end up being like pretty a kind of meh class. I think like
this is what Kyle's tweet was essentially. So. Everybody remember that in a year from now.
I disagree. Yes, I'm high on Chet, but I'm also high on
Poku,
Benedict, Mathurin, and like Kyle said, you really never know. He could be the best player in the draft, and I wouldn't be that surprised. So Canadian basketball fans, go check his game out. It's just ending right now, and we got to support our guys. So
okay, let's get out of here and watch it.
Exactly. That's it for us. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow night when the Raptors take on the Chicago Bulls in what is a very important game when it comes to that 6th seed. So tune in then, and we'll see you. Bye.